Want to get to some breaking news now at 10:30, and this involves Kilmar Abrego Garcia. The news alert this hour is that a Maryland judge has ordered that Kilmar Abrego Garcia immediately be released from ICE custody. This has a lot of layers to it, and obviously it's a story we've been following throughout the year today because of what has happened in Maryland and then what has happened in Tennessee. So again, a lot of layers here, so we want to bring in the expert herself, Fox 5 legal correspondent Katie Barlow, to help break this down for us. When we saw the court order that came down just a short time ago, Katie, what do you make of this?
Good morning, Steve. It's always good to be with you. We could call me maybe an expert, but this is a 31-page decision that just came down a couple of minutes ago. So we at Fox 5 are still kind of working our way through it, but I'll tell you my general understanding here. We all know that Kilmar Abrego Garcia was wrongly removed to El Salvador because at the time there was an understanding that he was ordered removed from this country, but that an immigration judge had said, you can remove him, but you cannot remove him to El Salvador because he's established this credible threat that he would face, problems there, persecution there. But now it seems, and after a number of hearings before Judge Paula Xinis that we have been reporting on consistently, where she has been at times very frustrated with the government, it appears that there was no removal order. At least that's what the judge is finding in her decision today. There was no removal order in the first place, meaning there was no order that he had to be removed to a third country. And that creates a problem under federal law for the government because you cannot hold him in ICE detention, at least the way that I read her decision and the way that I read the law, without that final order of removal. So the first thing the judge does in the decision is she walks through the background of the case, and then she makes a holding that there was never this final order of removal. And in fact, that the government doesn't seem to disagree or even have evidence to show that final order of removal. So she said, based on the law, the government's not allowed to detain him, certainly not indefinitely, when they can't show the goods, right? When they can't show that there's this order requiring him to be removed to a third country. You'll also remember that the government had made efforts. We don't know the extent of those efforts because a lot of that's been under seal, or they haven't provided evidence of it, but to send him to African nations, third-party countries. And they hadn't done so and hadn't been able to do so. So all of that was happening in the background at the same time. But at the end of the day, it appears the judge is saying there was never this final order of removal, so you do not get to detain him in ICE custody. And you also recall he's simultaneously facing this criminal case in Tennessee where he's being charged with human smuggling, where the judge said that he could be released. When you're making a decision in a criminal case about whether to release someone, it's whether they're a flight risk or a threat to the safety of the community. And the judge there said he's neither of those. We can release him pending trial. But then when he was released pending trial, ICE picked him up. So now at the end of her order, Judge Paula Xinis in Maryland says you must immediately release him from ICE custody, but then you need to make sure that he meets with pretrial services in Tennessee to make sure all of the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, that he is in line with the requirements of his release from the criminal case, which he still faces.
I was going to ask, and I'm glad that you clarified that at the end, because I did see that there would have to be communication with the officials in the legal representation in Tennessee to make sure that that's fine. Katie, I think the question people have immediately, and first of all, your general overview of this is much more next level than what most of us can get with a deep dive. So thank you for that. But the question that people, I think, will have is, if there was no justification found by this judge in Maryland right now that would lead to potentially his immediate release from ICE custody, could the federal government, if they want, could they find another reason to just take him back into custody for something else and continue this process once again?
Not immediately, but the government right now has the option, I believe, to appeal her decision. It would have to be an emergency appeal up to the Fourth Circuit, which oversees cases out of Maryland, and they would have to hope that the Fourth Circuit would intervene pretty quickly in order to block this judge's order. Because as I read it, she says immediately, which doesn't really leave much room for interpretation. And I believe on the docket, it says she would like status of his release in an email to her chambers by 5 p.m. today. So that's 6.5 hours, because we know he's still being held on the East Coast in a detention facility that's close enough to Maryland so that he can meet with his lawyers there and not deprive him of his right to counsel. So immediately doesn't leave much wiggle room for the government. They may try to appeal, but this will be a true and direct test of the government's willingness to obey a court order here. The government has consistently tried to ensure that he would either remain detained or be sent to another country. And so this is really putting pen to paper, quite literally, on forcing the government to do this. So the next 6.5 hours is something that could be monumental in this country. We'll see.
Yeah, for lack of a better way of saying it, he's really become a poster child for the government in these types of cases. So it would be a huge decision one way or another, seeing which way this plays out. But you're right, it sounds like for this judge in Maryland, immediately, if she wants to hear the status by the close of business today. We're going to have much more on this story throughout the day today. Katie's going to keep working on it, and we'll share her updates, of course, on social, online, Fox Local, and on our programming here on Fox 5 as well. But the bottom line is a judge in Maryland has ordered the immediate release of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. We'll see if that actually happens. We'll get updates throughout the day, and we'll bring them to you when we do. We'll take a short break, and we'll continue on with the 10A right after this.